Michael Ippolito, who wrote an article for Crisis Magazine online. It's titled Christopher Columbus, America's Saintly Founder. And he writes, Christopher Columbus has become one of the most polarizing figures in American history. Our nation used to revere Columbus as one of America's greatest heroes. Now he's one of the Republic's greatest villains. Revolutionaries depict Columbus as a power-hungry maniac who wanted to enslave and annihilate the natives. Any honor of Columbus, whether it's a statue or a holiday, must be torn down and replaced, according to the liberal revolutionaries. In contrast, the right depicts Columbus as a nationalist pioneer. The right defends his legacy as that of a courageous pioneer whose actions led to the eventual formation of the United States of America. However, both sides miss a significant fact from Columbus's life. Columbus was not a genocidal villain or a nationalist explorer. He was a saintly man who wanted to win souls for Christ. Columbus should be revered as America's saintly founder. You need to teach this to your children, beloved, and make sure if you have them in schools, even Catholic schools, that they teach this. Columbus indeed was a man of providence. From his landing in the Americas on the Feast of Our Lady of Pillar, October 12, 1492, to the etymology of his name, Columbus's life was guided by the hand of God. Christopher, which means Christ-bearer, and Columbus, which relates to the dove, the common symbol of the Holy Spirit, shows that his name reflected a great mission that God had bestowed on him. Columbus did not fail to live up to his namesake. He sought to follow the command of the Great Commission and evangelize all the natives he encountered. Often, modern history books fail to discuss Columbus's desire to evangelize, but this desire served as one of the primary factors for his mission. An entry in his journal states, quote, "I gave them many beautiful and pleasing things, which I have brought with me, for no return whatever, to win their affection, and that they might become Christians, and inclined to love our king and queen, and princes, and all the people of Spain, and that they might be eager to search for, and gather, and give to us what they abound in, and we greatly need." Columbus, like all Catholics at that time, understood that there is no salvation outside the Catholic Church, and that baptism is essential for salvation. Beloved, that is as true today as it was then. There is no salvation outside the Catholic Church, and baptism is essential for salvation. Columbus's first instinct was not to murder the natives, but to save their souls. The pagan natives were in desperate need of a massive reordering of their culture, and Columbus provided them with the path to salvation. While many Spaniards wanted to exploit the natives, Columbus chose to defend their rights and dignity. Pope Leo XIII recognized the zeal of Columbus, as he wrote in Quarto Abunte Seculo. He wrote this, quote, "Columbus resolved to go before and prepare the ways for the gospel, and deeply absorbed in this idea, gave all his energies to it, attempting hardly anything without religion for his guide and piety for his companion. In a field full of prideful men and arrogance, Columbus remained the shining light for all men to imitate." Samuel Eliot Morison wrote in Admiral of the Ocean Sea that, quote, "Columbus was a man with a mission, and such men are apt to be unreasonable and disagreeable to those who cannot see the mission. He was man alone with God against human stupidity and depravity, against greedy conquistadors, cowardly seamen, even against nature and the sea," end quote. However, Columbus was not motivated just by a desire to evangelize. Many Americans are not informed of the sailor's desire to obtain enough funds to retake the Holy Land. Yes, Columbus was a crusader. In Columbus and the Quest for Jerusalem by Carol Delaney, Columbus recorded in his diary that he hoped the Spanish crown would spend all the profits of this my enterprise on the conquest of Jerusalem. The Italian sailor hoped that the Holy Land could return to Christian hands, just as Spain had returned to Christian hands after the Reconquista. Columbus wished to continue the trend worldwide. Columbus was not just a crusader for the Holy Land, but his efforts were considered an expansion of Christendom's might. The Spanish and then the French colonies that followed the fantastic voyage brought the traditions of a unified Christian continent. Queen Isabella would even call the Spanish colonies the northern rim of Christendom. Unfortunately, the Protestant Revolution and the rise of the nation-state prevented a completely united Catholic continent. Columbus's efforts and desires reflect his incredible level of magnanimity. It was Columbus's brave efforts that opened the doors for the Age of Discovery to begin. Beginning with the Catholic explorers, the Americas would be settled, eventually leading to the creation and rise of the United States of America. But Columbus's feat was so great that he was almost given sainthood. In 1876, Cardinal Donnet, Archbishop of Bordeaux, sent a letter to Blessed Pius IX from among the episcopate to introduce Columbus's cause for canonization. In the letter, it stated, quote, "The facts and documents on which the impartial historian has based his account are so numerous and so conclusive that they have carried conviction to the mind even of writers, separated indeed from Catholic unity, but guided by the love of the truth alone. This conviction, Holy Father, has become in a short time so strong that a large number of the fathers of the Vatican Council have voluntarily affixed their signatures to the petition for the introduction of the cause." That's the cause of the canonization of Columbus. Unfortunately, this did not manifest due to the potential backlash. In the 19th century movement to canonize Columbus, Philip Campbell wrote, "Columbus could be a Catholic saint or a hero of America's civil religion, but he could not be both." I don't know why not. Civic religion rather. Columbus, before the liberal revolutionaries started ripping down his statues, has always had a seat among America's founding fathers. However, Columbus was more than one founding father. He was America's founding father. His mission not only opened the doors for discovery, but saved millions of souls through their conversion to Christianity. For these efforts, he is a saint. Catholics should look to Columbus not just as a nationalistic hero or a great man, but as a saint. Pope Leo wrote, quote, "Columbus is ours, so that for this reason also the whole human race owes not a little to the Church." End quote. Yes, Columbus is ours, and his Catholic faith cannot be separated from his accomplishments. As revolutionaries attempt to tarnish Columbus's legacy, it is important to hold fast to the truth about Columbus. He was not the evilest villain in the world, nor was he just a brave explorer. Columbus was America's saintly founder, and he deserves nothing but praise. There you go, beloved. It's good to get the record straight. Very good. There's another wonderful article. It's part of Tradition in Action by Margaret Galitzin, and it's Columbus and the First Christmas in America. And she writes, to people who go into a new country to live, Christmas, which is so generally a family feast, must of necessity be a lonely, homesick one. They carry with them the memory of happy customs, of loved ones far away, and of familiar customs. Most especially was this the case with the first Christmas spent by the Catholic Spanish explorers in the New World. This would be good, beloved, we're just 2 months, a little more than 2 months away from Christmas. And this would be very wonderful to read to your children. Since land had been sighted in October of 1492, Columbus had continued exploring the Bahamas, the northeast coast of Cuba, and the northern coast of Hispaniola in the Caribbean. The intrepid mariner, Christopher Columbus, entered the port of Bohio in the island of Haiti on St. Nicholas Day, December 6, 1492. In honor of the day, he named that port St. Nicholas. The caravel Pinta, with its crew, had parted from the other two ships and gone its own way. To the Santa Maria and the Nina sailed on together. So let me just repeat that. The caravel Pinta with its crew had parted from the other two ships and gone its own way. So the Santa Maria and the Nina sailed on together, occasionally stopping where the port seemed inviting. While in one of these, Columbus heard of rich mines not far distant and started out for them. On the Santa Maria, St. Mary, on the Santa Maria, the admiral and his men were tired from continuously keeping watch. And as the sea was smooth and the wind favorable, they retired to their quarters below deck to sleep on Christmas Eve, leaving the ship in care of a boy. Instead of smooth sailing, however, the ship ran into trouble and struck a sandbank and settled, a complete wreck in those waters so close to land. Fortunately, no lives were lost, and the wreckage furnished material for the building of a fortress. This task occupied the men's time during the remainder of the Christmas season. The Nina was too small to accommodate two crews. Therefore, on Christmas Day, many of the men were wandering who were to stay on that faraway island among the bizarre-looking natives of whom they knew nothing. Guatanagari, the chief of the nearby tribe, who had already heard about these strange men sailing the waters, sent many of his men in canoes to assist the strangers and did what he could to help them during the day. Spaniards and natives worked until dawn on Christmas morning to bring ashore what they could save from the wreckage and stored it away on the island for future use. Fortunately, they succeeded in saving almost all of their provisions, the spars, and even many of the nails of the wrecked Santa Maria. This is wonderful. But what a difficult Christmas morning for Columbus and his men, stranded on an island far from home among a strange people. There were no festivities to be observed by that sad, careworn company of 300 Indians on that day. The following morning, however, Chief Guacanagari visited the Nina and invited Columbus ashore, where a meal was prepared in his honor, the first public function attended by Columbus in America. We can imagine that beautiful island, which to many probably seemed a paradise on earth, with tall trees waving their long fronds in the warm breeze and myriads of birds such as they had never seen filling the air with song. Columbus stood, attired in his full uniform, as it befitted him to be, inside his host, who was dressed just in a shirt and a pair of gloves that Columbus had given him, with a coronet of gold on his head. The other Indian chieftains, also with gold coronets, moved about in nature's garb among the more or less 1,000 who were present as guests. The meal consisted of shrimp, cassava, the same as the native bread, and some of their nutritive roots. It was not a sumptuous repast, though it may have been a bountiful one. The work of building the fortress began at once. Within 10 days, the fortress of La Navidad, present-day Mole St. Nicholas, was completed. It stood on a hill and was surrounded with a broad, deep ditch for protection against natives and animals. This was planned to be the home of those Spaniards who would remain there. For, as mentioned before, the Nina was too small to host the crews of two ships. Leaving provisions sufficient for 1 year, Columbus bade farewell to those 39 men who he would never see again, and sailed to Spain on January 4th, 1493, to report the news of his discovery, which thenceforth would be called the New World. What for Columbus seemed a cruel fate, losing the Santa Maria and leaving his men behind in that fortress, was actually the means of his bestowing a valuable gift to history. Had the Santa Maria not wrecked, but continued her course in safety that Christmas Eve, the fortress of La Navidad, or any European settlement probably would not have been founded in the New World on Columbus's first voyage. So although it was a sad, troubled Christmas for the Spanish adventurers, it proved memorable for the annals of America. 400 years later, the anchor of the Santa Maria was discovered and brought to the United States to be one of its treasured exhibits at the Great Columbian Exposition, where a descendant of Columbus was the honored guest of the government. Isn't it beautiful, beloved? Isn't it beautiful to know our history? To know that America was not always the godless nation it is today. Isn't it beautiful, beloved? Cardinal John Henry Newman said, to dig deep into history is to cease to be Protestant. And that is true. To go all the way back to the Church Fathers, there was no Protestantism there. It was all Catholic. And to go back to the roots of our country, which is considered a Protestant nation, it was Catholic, founded by a Catholic. God's world, beloved, is Catholic. Go deep into history and cease being Protestant, and cease being an atheist, and cease being any man-made religion, and enter the church. Our Lord came from heaven to earth to save us. Through that church alone, there is no other name under heaven by which we must be saved, and no other church through which that salvation is accomplished than the Catholic Church.